Welcome back to the vKTLW Quaestor Officer Training. You have now been introduced to the basics of budgeting. Now let's take a look at building a functional budget using Microsoft Excel. We will also explore incorporating your newly created budget in your chapter's financial software. Let's get started. We will now take a look at budgeting with Excel. The Budget Builder Excel template is available in the Quaestor SharePoint files. As a quick review, the Budget Builder template will include asset inputs, liability inputs, a mock income statement, a check register, and it now has a payable register, which we will talk about in the Payables module. Once you open the Budget Builder Excel file, it should open to the Budget Builder instructions. The Budget Builder instructions will walk you through how to determine your chapter's budgeted assets, how to determine your chapter's budgeted expenses, how to review your budget once you have made all the proper entries. It will help you review a projected income statement. It will also help you use a bank register if necessary. Now let's take a look at the asset questionnaire where you can enter in your estimated assets. If you look at the top of the asset questionnaire, you can see a spot to fill in information such as your chapter name, your university or college, your name as the Quaestor, the budget year, and the budget approval date. From our previous module, you know the importance of this information. We need to know who the budget is for, who created the budget, what year the budget is for, and on what date it was approved by the financial committee and the chapter. The asset questionnaire has been designed to ask basic questions about your chapter's assets. Once you have made all the relevant entries, the budget will automatically begin to calculate based on those entries. So let's take a look at a couple examples. If we go to question 1, it asks how much are your current chapter dues. It then gives us a field to enter an amount for out-of-house dues and an amount for in-house dues should you have a chapter house and the dues structure be different. If we go to question number 2, it asks how many active members do we anticipate having in the following 2 semesters. Here you can enter a number for the amount of out-of-house brothers and the amount of in-house brothers you plan to have in the fall, and the same information for the spring. Based on these entries in questions 1 and 2, the budget will begin to calculate the amount of chapter dues income you will have for the year. Let's take a look at just a couple more. Question 7 asks, how many new members do you anticipate having in the following 2 semesters? As you remember from the previous module, we talked about how important it is to include other officers and chairmen in the budgeting process. Question 7 is an example. Perhaps you had a discussion with the recruitment chairman to find out how many new members he anticipates the chapter will get in the fall and the spring. You could enter those numbers here into the asset questionnaire. We then enter $100 in for our new member fee, since that's the current fee, and it will begin to calculate how much income we will have based on new members. Let's take a look at just one more. Question 19 asks, if you charge an insurance fee, i.e. a risk management fee per member, how many paying members do you anticipate in the next 2 semesters? Since we've already estimated how many in-house and out-of-house brothers we're going to have for spring and fall, and we've already estimated how many new members we're going to have for both semesters, those numbers are automatically added and put into this field. We then have the current insurance fee of $197 already entered in to calculate how much income we plan to have from insurance. These were just a couple examples from the asset questionnaire. Once you have filled out all the relevant data for the asset questions, you can move on to the expense questionnaire. The expense questionnaire will follow the same format as the asset questionnaire. At the top of the questionnaire, you'll see that the chapter information we recorded on the asset questionnaire has automatically been brought over. Let's take a look at a couple of the entries we need to make in regard to expenses. On the asset questionnaire, we recorded estimates for income from chapter dues. Now we have to record the expenses related to those dues. Question 5 asks, record the estimated international, new member, and initiation fees that will be due to the general fraternity in the next 2 semesters. You can see the first entry field gives us the ability to enter in the number of brothers who are going to owe first semester international dues in the fall, in the spring, and the international fee. On the next line, we have the same entry for second semester dues for fall, spring, and the fee. We also have an entry field for new members for the fall, spring, and the new member fee. We also have initiation fees for fall, spring, and the initiation fee. So in this area, we record the number of brothers we expect for each expense, and we can record or update the fees associated with those dues. Let's take a look at a couple more. If we go down to question 9, it asks us to record our estimated cost per member for liability insurance, as well as our estimated membership for the following 2 semesters. You can see that the active members for fall and spring and the new members for fall and spring have automatically been brought over from the asset questionnaire. The cost per member reflects the $197 that will be due for 2020 and 2021. This number could be updated if there was ever a change in the insurance fee. Let's look at one more. Number 16 asks us to enter all anticipated programming expenses below for the following 2 semesters. A couple examples here: chapter retreats, derby days, which would include the amount that we're going to be donating, other philanthropies, if we happen to have other philanthropies that we are donating to, and then things like homecoming, golf outings, and other programming if the programming that you have isn't on this list. You can lump those in under that field. Once you've made all of the relevant entries in the expense questionnaire, you're ready to move on to the budget. Let's take a look at the budget we created. If you look at the top of the budget, you can see the information for our chapter already brought over from the asset questionnaire. Along the left-hand side, you'll see the income budget details. The entries we made on the asset questionnaire has automatically calculated the amounts for these accounts. Here's a couple of the examples that we used in the asset questionnaire. You can see our chapter dues have automatically been calculated to show up on the budget, as well as our new member dues. If we go down, you can see that our insurance has already been brought over as well. Now, I do want to point something out in regard to previous balance. Let's go back to the asset questionnaire for a second. If you look at number 22, it says what will be the previous cash balance of your asset accounts at the start of the first semester. Here you can see we have entries for main checking, payroll checking if you have employees, any other checking accounts you might have. If you have a savings account, you can enter the balance of the savings account in this field. If you have a money market account, you can enter it here. Any cash on hand, which hopefully you don't have a lot, but if you have any petty cash, you would make that entry here, and any other accounts that are not listed above. Going back to our budget, the previous balance is the sum of all of those accounts. On the right-hand side of our budget are the expense budget details. Let's take a look at a couple of the examples from our expense questionnaire. Here you can see our international dues, new member dues, and initiation dues have been calculated for us and brought over to the budget. The same is true for the insurance fees. And down here you can see some of the programming we talked about with derby days, homecoming, and any other programming. Now the point of the budget is to make calculations for total assets and total liabilities, or income and expenses, and compare the two. Here over in the green highlighted box you can see our total income is calculated at $155,880. Our total expenses are calculated at $137,840. The difference between the two is $18,040. That is a positive amount because we have more income than expenses. As this cell indicates, over/under cell will highlight red if over budget. Should our budget estimates produce a budget where the expenses are higher than the income, this number right here would turn red. Then we would know we need to go back to our asset and expense questionnaires, reevaluate each item, and make changes until we can ensure that our income exceeds our expenses. Once you're complete, you can print out this budget to present to the Financial Committee and the chapter for approval once you ensure it is under budget. If you use Greek Bill, you'll want to click on the worksheet labeled Greek Bill Budget. This budget has all of the same information that we just looked at. The difference is that the income budget details and the expense budget details follow the same formatting you will find in the budgeting module within Greek Bill. If you have Greek Bill, this is the budget template you will want to use. Another important resource available to us in the Budget Builder template is a mock income statement. We'll talk more about income statements in a future module, but for now we want to look at how the mock income statement compares to our budget. So let's click back to our budget and look at this number right here. Previous balance of $7,200. The difference between the mock income statement and our budget is that in the mock income statement, the $7,200 of cash we had at the beginning of our term is not included. If we go back and take a look at this number right here, $148,560, that represents the revenue or the income on the mock income statement. If we were to add in this little bit of income down here, this interest income of $120, to the $148,560, and if we were to add back the $7,200 of our previous balance, we would be back at $155,880. Again, the point of the mock income statement is to remove the cash on hand we had at the beginning of our term and simply look at the operations of the chapter for the 1-year period the budget is representing. If we look at the mock income statement and we look at the $148,560 minus our total liabilities or expenses, which is the cost of sales plus the operating expenses, you'll see that we have a net income after that little bit of interest income of $10,840. If this were a negative number, there'd be a little minus sign right here. So this is showing $10,840 of positive net income from our operations from the year. Should you look at the mock income statement after building the budget and you notice that the net income number is negative, that means you should probably go back to your asset questionnaire and your expense questionnaire and make adjustments until the net income is positive. If you operate the chapter at a loss for its year, what that will do is that will start to chip away at the $7,200 that you had in the bank account in this example. Use the mock income statement to ensure that for the year, your chapter is operating at a positive net income. There's one more resource we'll talk about as part of this module that's available to us in the Budget Builder template. If we click on the worksheet that says Bank Register, you'll see a chapter bank register appear. The point of the bank register is to record transactions that occur in your checking or savings account. Some financial softwares no longer have this functionality. You'll see the cell at the top under the deposit column that says opening balance of checking or savings. Obviously, most of you are going to be using checking and savings accounts that have already been in operation. What you'll want to do is enter a number based on the balance at the beginning of your term. For our purposes of this example, we'll go back to our asset questionnaire and look at the amount we had in our main checking at the start of our budget. We'll go back and we'll enter the $2,000 as our opening balance. You'll see that when we put that into the deposit column, it automatically transferred over to the balance. So let's take a look at a transaction. If we look at this September 1st of 2020 transaction, it's for first semester dues collection, and apparently we collected it from founder Isaac M. Jordan. This would be a deposit, we'll say it's $100, into our bank account. you'll see that the balance automatically updated and calculated the additional $100 to $2,100. We'll go ahead to the next cell and do the same for Brother Cooper. We'll put in $100 that we collected from Brother Cooper for dues. You'll see that it automatically added that into our balance, and we now have $2,200. Now let's assume that we have to pay the international dues payment for Brother Jordan and Brother Cooper's dues. In the withdrawal column, we'll add in $200, and here you'll see the balance updates again to reflect the $200 coming out of the account to $2,000. We'll further assume that they needed to pay a membership fee to the Aradelphian Society. It probably wasn't that much, so we'll put in $10. And you'll see that once again the balance updates. If your software doesn't have a bank register, you can use this bank register to keep track of the transactions occurring in your savings or checking account. Now let's take a look at budgeting with software. The first thing we need to do is log into our financial software. In our example, we will be using GreekBill. Once we've entered into our dashboard, we want to find our budgeting function. Here you can see we have an option to create and manage a budget. Here you can see a couple budgets have been created. Here's the 2020-2021 budget that I've created in GreekBill. From our summary page, we can click Review. Your budgeting software should be similar. We had the opportunity to create a budget name, select the budget term, and the approval status, which we've just created this budget, so our status is going to be new. If you want to enter a comment, you can enter a comment in a comment section. Now let's take a look at our assets and liabilities. Here you can see the income budget details. As you can tell, the accounts from our asset questionnaire and our budget are now in GreekBill. Let's take a look at our budget template alongside of the software. As you can see, the numbers from our budget, which we estimated, have now been entered in to our software. Let's take a look at the example of our chapter dues. Here you see we estimated $23,000 of income on our budget. We have now entered that amount for our chapter dues into our software budget. As we scroll down, you can see that all of the entries from our budget have now been added to our financial software. And as we get to the bottom, you can see that the $155,880 matches the $155,880 from our budget template. That lets us know that our entries have been made correctly. Now let's take a look at our expenses. We have followed the same process and entered the expenses from our budget into our software. Here's an example with our bad debt write-off of $2,000, which matches the estimate that we had in our budget template. As we scroll down, you can see that all of these entries from our budget have been entered as well. Here you can see a total of $137,840, which matches the total expenses from our estimated budget. Here you can see an overview of our budget where it shows our income budget and our expense budget, as well as our budget surplus, which is a positive $18,040, which indeed matches the estimate that we had in our budget template. We've now completed entering our budget information into our financial software. We will revisit the budget entries we've made in our software when we talk about cash flow in a later module. This concludes the module on budgeting. For more information regarding this topic, check out the online resources available through sigmachi.org, your chapter officer SharePoint files, or from your own chapter records if available. Remember to take part in the online discussion related to this officer training module with your facilitator and the members of your Quaestor group.